Okay, so we were talking about Babylon and Sumeria earlier, and if you just move
how bright is
there
that? Yeah, go on. You carry on. Go on.
Yeah, it's a bit blown out, isn't it? So on the right column there, there's a list of numbers, and that's called the Sumerian Kings List, and this is detailing from, I think there's a black line halfway down that list, and that details a separating of what modern scholars call mythical time from actual time. So if you look down that column of numbers, we'll have to wait for a second.
Sorry, mate. I'm fucking around with the camera.
If you just move it over a little, would be cool. So there's a list of numbers there, and these are the ages that the kings lived for in Sumeria. And if you look down that list, a lot of these numbers, I can't see. Can you see them there, Ben? Can you read those?
Yeah.
Got 720 there. 720 P.
Mm-hmm.
What have we got? 186. That sounds like.
Yeah, there's a few that aren't, and I'm yet to figure those out. But there are so many on there that
We've
are.
got 432.
432.
Got 360.
Yeah, 360.
Poor old Zamog, he only made it to 140.
900. Yeah. There's a lot of sort of sacred numbers there.
Yeah.
420. That's a sacred number.
That is
in
very
some
sacred
circles.
number. Yeah. So again, we've got this image that we've talked about in previous episodes of two polar opposites around a central tree, and then some kind of a sky deity above it. What it's really representing is the pole of the earth, or the pole of your spine, pointing up to the pineal gland if it's your spine, pointing up to the pole star if it's cosmological, and this dualities thing. These guys are of the sea, feminine, and of the earth, and the men. So they got this duality about them, and the root of all these teachings are called the Serpent Knowledge, and that is essentially is Serpent Knowledge. Real understanding of these polar opposites, how to obliterate each other, and go into this null place in your mind. Usually done by drugs. We can see there's a colour image of some stone there, of a hand holding opium poppies.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So that's the biggest clue, and we can see what we've called Oannes previously, one of these 7 sages, which are represented by the plough. Here's one of the 7 sages on the left. He's doing the foot forward, like showing he's in motion, which is exactly the same angle as the Earth is at. So showing you this possession stuff's old. He's holding his handbag, which we'll get into a bit later, but is totally related to these drugs and this knowledge that he carries. And it's also a kind of it's the main part of the bag is the Earth. The square of the earth, and then the handle is the sky. What it actually is a it's given away here actually. So in many pictures, I can't quite see on these ones, but in many pictures he's holding his hand in what's called the fig position. Now, still in lots of countries, that means.
All right, so your thumb is sort of tucked between your first and second finger.
It's a sexual. It's a willy inside a fanny.
Yeah.
So normally, often he's doing that at the tree.
Right.
Now, if that often is a fig tree in inverted commas, all these things being symbolic, whether you've heard of a fig tree that's
Adam and Eve, the fig leaf.
The fig leaf. So the thing about the fig is that aside from wasps, which pollinate it, there's nothing else that pollinates it. So you've got to do it by hand.
Really?
So they'd have the bucket of water and pollen and fertilize the tree. They'd take a pine cone, could get all the pollen and stuff in there, and they can sprinkle it on the tree.
No way.
Now, what it's also is that bag's in front of his sexual parts. He's dipping into that bag, and he's fertilizing the pineal at the top of the tree with it.
And it's kind of reminiscent, if you were a church goer when you were at school, of the church walking down, the priest walking down the aisle, dipping.
Sprinkling on you.
Yeah.
Hello, here you go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Nice.
And he does it from a little bucket. It's not like he's,
Yes, it's
So-
borrowed. It's a borrowed.
Yeah, it's carried along.
symbolism.
It's been said many times that these fish hats are the same fish hats as the
bishop.
bishops. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's often denied and said, it comes from the 1300s and all this stuff. Yeah, fair enough, but there were many other instances going back to Kibel and Janus, which were right on the first episode of all this stuff. And they wear those hats and have the keys and all these other symbols that are so old.
The keys, that was important for the god Janus, was it?
It was. Janus holds the keys to the new year because it's January.
Oh, right. Keys are important. That was important for the Romans because there was a famous temple of Janus in Rome. And the idea was it was shut all the time unless Rome was at war. So it was pretty much open all the time. Right. But that was the whole thing. It was like, it was locked.
Those gates,
keys,
they were locked.
This is locked, it's off limits. We only open the Temple of Janus when Rome is at war.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Cool, huh?
Janus a two-faced god as well.
Yeah, he's Capricorn and Aquarius. Because Capricorn's December, Aquarius is January.
Right. Aquarius always looking forward.
Mm-hmm. Capricorn looking back. Capricorn's a hoary old man. Janus is the young fella. So, it's this same stuff over and over again that we've discussed in these previous episodes. And it's really... So, it's often talked about what's the Holy Grail? What's the Philosopher's Stone? These are all analogies for the same thing. And it is all this information collected together. This body of knowledge, which is the spine, the drug, the pole star, the maths. And they're all underneath this same umbrella of this wisdom teaching. It's like a set of images that you get. And it's like, okay, this has got layers to it. It's got maths in it, early science. It's got shamanism in there, how to perfect yourself. It's kind of a book of life, really. And as Hamlet's Mill garbledly tells you, it's the beginnings of science, essentially. Oh, you son of a bitch. Hamlet's Mill, an essay investigating Hingle Bangle, Jingle Flangle, Toogle.
Yeah.
Hertha von Deschend and Santiago.
Yeah, such a son of a bitch to read this.
It's
thing.
an absolute turd. But I remember we were doing the podcast when I read it, and I said, it was good. Yeah, it's all there.
It's all in here.
It's all there. It was like, it was good, but I'm going to have to read this again in 20 years when I know more.
Yeah, well,
because so much of it went over my head.
I'd already gotten my head around most of this stuff, and then it was like, oh, I should really try and read that book again, and read it, and it was still a bloody nightmare.
Yeah, because it's not written like
by a human
or for humans
or a sod.
It's not written for humans.
Written by the ghost of a drunk alien.
But yeah,
it's got nice pictures.
Hamlet's Mill is the wheel of time we're talking about, the processional cycle, the long count. That's the whole point of it. Shakespeare, or whoever wrote Shakespeare, Francis Bacon, John Dee, whoever you think it was, they knew this stuff and they encoded it in
Edward de Vere. Right, my suspicions is...
We'll have to save that for another episode.
Yes. Okay, so just to show you that it is this death, birth, resurrection stuff, you've got two priests death birthing a mummy that looks like a worm there. Can you see that guy?
Yeah, the Persian priests.
Yeah. So it's just this death, birth, resurrection stuff. Just this simple thing that can alter your life completely. So should we do the next slide?
Those poppies.
Yeah.
Would they be suitable for flicking pollinated water around? And the other thing I was thinking is they're like harvest poppies.
Yeah.
They'd be probably quite dry, and if they're dry, they'd make quite a rattling noise. I don't know if it might just be.
Those are all valid points. Very speculative.
Oh yeah, I don't know shit about fuck.
So you put it in some kind of shit about fuck.
Is it Ozark?
Yeah.
I don't know shit about fuck.
You put it in like a shamanic ritual into this, aren't you? Like you say,
the shaking of the beads and
yeah.
Absolutely. There's definitely room there.
Yeah, I heard they were also good at beatboxing, and some of them could actually freestyle.
I bet.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of these are breakdancing.
They're doing some kind of a boogie. They're walking like an Egyptian.